Now before we get into this video is sponsored by Blue Potion Games. And the main topic at hand is Echo of Souls, which I will put in the description link down below. Now for those of you who aren't aware, Echo of Souls is a medieval MMO RPG game that focuses a lot on action and strategy. But unlike your usual MMO trinity, Echo of Souls consists of only DPSers and tanks. There is no dedicated healer, which makes it a lot different and unique from other games. It also offers 7 unique classes that divide into 14 different class systems, which gives you a good amount of options to pick from, which also adds a lot of variety to the gameplay. And it also has a massive amount of stories and the quest line that would make your character stronger in every category as you complete them. So you're not going to get bored and there's a lot to do. The leveling system is very fast and concise, which is something that is always favorable in this type of games. And of course, once you level, more things become available to you. Dungeons, raids, and PvP would all be available after reaching level 10, as well as the changing of attributes. There's also a lot of cosmetics, pets, and many more that are available in the cash shop in case you want to look a little bit more special. But again, links will be in the description down below. Check it out, Echo of Souls, because I've been having a blast with this game. But let's get on to this video. Yo, what is up guys, Fer here, and today we're going to be talking about Katakuri and Fujitora's observation and why it's so special and different from other characters in the show. And this is something that I feel like a lot of people haven't talked about because there's definitely more to observation, or maybe just Haki in general. And perhaps this may give us to what we might see with Shanks, given as Shanks is probably the strongest Haki user in the series right now. Though I do feel like the strongest source of his power is from the highest level of Conqueror's Haki, but we all assume that he's probably going to be extremely proficient in ornament and observation because Haki is the only thing that he relies on. Now, Katakuri's observation is clearly one of the best, if not the best, in the series based on what we currently know. Well, in terms of the precognition subsphere of observation, because it allows him to see a couple of seconds into the future. And again, observation has at least 2 subsphere that we know about, and there might be even more that hasn't been revealed to us yet. Now, in terms of the present subsphere of observation, I'm more likely to lean towards Enno or Fujitora, and maybe Rayleigh, but I think we need to see more from these guys before we can make clear judgment. But as of right now, I'm thinking Fujitora because he's blind, and I think that sort of amplified his observation to some degree. Kind of the same thing that happens to people in real life when they get blind. What happens here is that the other senses are then amplified. So in Fujitora's case, his observation is probably a lot stronger than the average person at a base level because of his blindness. Now, at the same time, Enno uses his lightning devil fruit ability to amplify his range to make it sort of like a sonar, which allowed him to pretty much sense the entirety of Skypiea. But we're going to be looking at observation at a base level, so I'm definitely going to give this to Fujitora, even though we haven't seen the full extent of his observation. But I think the majority of us can agree that his observation has to be one of the strongest in the series. And even then, during the events of Dressrosa, Fujitora proved himself to be extremely proficient with presence, not just for actual living creatures, but also for inanimate objects that technically shouldn't have presence. And this is shown during Dressrosa, where he was able to pinpoint every single debris in Dressrosa and single them out with his gravity. This is one of the feats in the series where not a lot of people talk about, even though it was super impressive. And it really goes back to show that observation is not just limited to living creatures, but also objects. This could be correlated as to why he's able to pinpoint and bring down asteroids from space, because he has to know where these asteroids are before he can pull it down with his gravity. And this is why, even though Fujitora is blind, he's still a very capable fighter. So in terms of his proficiency in the present subsphere of observation, Fujitora might be number 1 in the series as of right now. That could change obviously with new characters having a higher level of observation than him, or a variant of it. For example, Shanks is definitely going to be up there as well, but I think his version might be a lot different from the ones we've seen so far. Personally, I think Shanks' observation has something to do with time. I think his perception of time is slower than usual, but I'll talk more on this in a different video. Now, when it comes to what's actually more helpful in a fight, it's definitely Katakuri's observation. Seeing into the future is probably one of the more broken abilities we've seen in the entire show, and we saw how effective it was during Luffy's fight against Katakuri. Luffy, it's probably one of those skills that could make someone truly invincible, in the sense that these people would never get hit. And this is why I think some of the fights in One Piece can last for days. An example here would be Akainu versus Aokiji, but it's very evident that Oda did place limitations to this ability, given as we know that using Future Sight is also like Gear Fort, whereas it drains the user's Haki faster than usual and gets weaker over time, which makes sense because Katakuri didn't seem to be using Future Sight as much towards the end of the battle, and Luffy did also state that Katakuri's observation would get weaker as the fight drags on. Now, the future that Katakuri sees is the actual future. However, that future can change if Katakuri acts upon that future, therefore changing the future. This was one of the main reasons Luffy was able to avoid Katakuri's attacks, along with how Luffy's Devil Fruit ability makes him evade in weird ways. So this is how it plays out. Katakuri sees into the future, he sees what happens in the future. The moment that Katakuri tries to interfere with that future makes that future changeable because of the dependent variable in that situation, which also comes down to the fact that Katakuri cannot foresee his own actions. So the future is only absolute as far as he doesn't act upon it. So if Katakuri saw a future where Luffy gets stabbed, that is a future that will 100% happen. Now, there's also a common misconception about Future Sight, and this is that people think that when Katakuri sees the future, he sees a picture. But the reality here is that Katakuri visualizes the future as a video, which is something that's processed at the same time that he sees the present. I think this is why he gets irritated sometimes, especially when he was fighting Luffy. So in a sense, it's kind of like he's seeing both the present and the future at the same time. But obviously, since he knows the ins and out of Future Sight, he's probably used to it now, even though it might be something that he struggled with at the beginning of his training. Now, what's kind of crazy about this is that once he sees into the future, the visualized video that he sees of the future is processed instantly in real time. The time that it takes for him to process the information that he observed using Future Sight is pretty much instant, because you would assume that seeing into the future would make you freeze for a couple of seconds to take in the information that you saw. But Katakuri sees that information and it's processed instantly in real time. And this is why he can react as soon as he sees into the future. There is no delay when it comes to Katakuri reacting based on what he saw. And again, what he sees as a visualized video of the future that is more or less a couple of seconds long, which is actually insane. And Katakuri starts to look more impressive when you realize the steps he takes in order to do certain things. For example, the way he was able to evade Haki and build attacks is key example of how fast he processes the information. Now, when you go back to the scene when Luffy and Katakuri initially clashed with the Red Hawk, afterwards Luffy does a Hawk Gatling. Now, there's so much going on here that you wouldn't even realize at a first glance. First things first, he sees the barrage of attacks, knows where these attacks are gonna land, then he efficiently evades the attacks using his Logia-like ability. And given that this is a barrage of attacks, he has to do this constantly. That shows that Katakuri has some OD reflexes, and that's probably one of the more impressive things I've seen. And even then, this is an ability that there isn't much you can do to get around it. Again, the more you look into the steps of the things Katakuri was doing, the more impressive it becomes. Now, the second thing that I wanted to talk about is something that a lot of people did talk about when Katakuri was initially introduced, and that's when we learned about him having the ability to see the future. And I also talked about this on Brago's stream as well, but it was something that was overshadowed later on and no one really came back to it. And I haven't seen anyone make a video surrounding this topic as well. And that's Katakuri hearing the voice of the future. Now, this is huge because it gave me a different perspective of what Future Sight is. Now, the first time this happened was during his introduction, when he encountered Jigra at the gates to the Tea Party, which he then proceeds to tell Capone that his men were going to get killed. But not only that, he also told Capone word for word what Jigra was going to say, as well as what Capone would say in response. And this was also shown during his fight with Luffy, where he said Gear Fort before Luffy actually went into Gear Fort. So not only does Katakuri see into the future, but he can also hear the future, as proven with different moments during Whole Cake. It's almost as if Katakuri projects a different version of himself into the future and uses that version as a way to not only see the future, but to hear it as well. And maybe he can actually feel and sense and interact with the future other than just having the ability to see it. Katakuri's Future Sight is obviously more than just seeing the future. And this really brings me back to Shanks and the insane things we're gonna get from him. And that's something something I think we're all looking for as we dive deeper into the origins of Haki. But that is pretty much it for this video. How do you guys feel about Katakuri and Fujitora's observation? And do you think we're going to see more variants moving forward? Comment down below what you guys think. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. It is Pharaoh, and I will see you guys later. Peace.